All right. Welcome everybody to May's Panvala Town Hall meeting. This is the monthly call where we try to get as many people together as possible, go over the latest in Panvala, answer any questions, and kind of chart a path forward together. So thanks for coming. Thanks for being a part of this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. The way we usually start this is kind of with a reiteration of what we're actually here to do, so everybody's on the same page. If you've heard it before, apologies. I hope you like hearing it because I'm going to say it again. But I like to go through this so everybody's on the same page. So just a little reiteration of what we do here. So first of all, what is Panvala? In crypto terms, you can think of it as a protocol treasury. If you've been paying attention to DeFi or any of these tokens out there, there's a lot of protocol treasuries out there that use their token supply to fund the project that the treasury is for. Panvala is kind of like that, but instead of funding one particular project, we try to share one treasury between as many communities as possible. We want to share it with as many communities, and we think it gets stronger the more we share it. If you wanted to think about Panvala in real world terms, if you're not a super crypto person and you're just like, what does this actually mean? I think you can think of Panvala as a community managed endowment. And the best example of a community managed endowment in the real world to me is a university endowment, pretty common in American universities. I think it exists elsewhere, but basically the idea is that the community of alumni and students are managing this endowment that they use to fund education, research, life on campus. The vibrant campus life that so many people are familiar with is funded by a community managed endowment. But not every community has the privilege of just inheriting a large set of assets from somebody hundreds of years ago to be able to fund their community. So we try to bootstrap a community managed endowment from scratch using our token system. So it's a protocol treasury that communities can share, and you can also think of it as a community managed endowment. That's what we're doing with Panvala. So the reason why people join Panvala, why people use it, is in the near term, it just matches their donations. We had 2x donation matching this past quarter. It fluctuates over time. The quarter before that, it was 7.5x. Before that, it was 10x. We don't like set an amount that we match donations at. We just use the inflation from the system, and whatever comes in compared to whatever comes out is what that multiplier is. And this past quarter happened to be 2x. It's matching people's donations, and people like to get their donations matched. In the long term, what we're doing is trying to give communities an economic tool that's on par with corporate equity and national currencies. And the reason that's important to me in particular is because when I look at our society, I see a society that's very dominated by political life and by corporate life, and community life really takes a backseat. We see that as an economic problem. Again, companies have powerful equity. Nations have powerful currencies. Communities, we don't have that kind of tool. We just kind of pool our assets together to get things done. It can work, but it just doesn't have the same kind of power behind it. We see Panvala as that economic tool that can elevate community life to at least be on par with corporate life and political life, but ideally elevate it even more than that. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bootstrap this network of thousands of communities that are working together to elevate community life. So what we're trying to do here, we think that the more we share Panvala's treasury, the stronger it gets. So we want to share it with as many communities as possible and elevate community life across the board. This isn't about like trying to make the most valuable token or something that's a speculative thing. We're trying to bring as many communities together as possible, help them work together, and kind of chart a new economic path forward for community life in particular. If you see all the dollars that companies spend trying to get the attention of people through advertising, we're trying to build a world where that same kind of money can be spent just giving communities a budget to do what they want with. I think that would be a much more effective form of advertising, and it would make people happier because they would get to do a lot more of the things that they want to do. That's the kind of economic tool that Panvala is, and that's what we're trying to bootstrap together. So there's 47 communities currently sharing this treasury. We want to share it with as many as possible. The only way to share it and be able to build up that network of communities that work together is with a culture of generosity. Because again, the value isn't in the token, it's in you, the people who are actively involved, it's in your communities, the people sharing the system. And for that to work, we have to be generous. We're generous with our help. We try to help other communities within Panvala succeed because we all benefit when any community succeed. We're stronger together. Any individual community getting stronger makes us all stronger. We're generous with our shared resources. We want to make sure that when you're benefiting from Panvala, that you're not trying to hoard everything, that you're trying to make sure that other communities can benefit as much as you do. We're generous with our presence. If we're all about community life requires showing up to things. So we try to show up to Panvala related things, but also show up to help the other communities who also need people to show up. We're generous with our presence. And then we're generous with our loyalty because we know that the road ahead is guaranteed to be bumpy. We're doing something that's hard. It's not easy. There are going to be bumps along the way. And for us to build that network of thousands of communities that are working together to elevate community life, we have to be able to stick together through those bumpy times. Even when it's hard to stick together, we do it anyway. So that's the culture of generosity that I think makes us thrive. And that's what we're trying to cultivate together here. So that's what we do here. Heard it before. Thanks for indulging me. If you haven't heard it before, I hope it makes sense to you, and feel free to ask any questions about that at any time. With that said, I'll jump into the meat of this thing. Before I do that, I'm gonna make Aylar a co-host so people don't get stuck in the waiting room anymore. Sorry about that, guys. But let me jump into the agenda. So the first thing on the agenda, and all this stuff is going to be in the memo that I send out to you right after this call. The first thing on the agenda is the road to 90 communities. So we're trying to, in Panvala, growth is very important. It's important for two reasons. One is that since we are trying to build up this network of thousands of communities, and we're 47 today, to get to thousands, we have to grow. And the second part is that since our matching model is based on dilution works well in a growing network. It doesn't work as well in a stagnant network. So we grow because that's kind of the model that we're here to do. We're trying to grow a network of thousands of cooperating communities. So our goal is to double in size for this quarter, and that means getting to about 90 communities from the 47 that we have today. So the way we bring in new communities is typically by the existing communities that are part of Panvala, talking to other communities that they work with and say, hey, we're benefiting from Panvala. We think you would benefit from Panvala too. Let's share this thing together. So that's where a lot of the existing 47 communities have come from. We started with 5 communities, and then some of those communities had a good experience and they told other people about it and they joined, etc. And we want to keep doing that. If there's other communities that you know of that would be a good fit for Panvala, which is almost all communities, anything that's not politically focused, it's kind of what we do. Then we want to talk to them and share Panvala with them. So on that road to 90 communities, there's 2 applications in so far for this next quarter. I forgot what that number is for the yellow, but it's about a dozen communities that we're currently talking to explain what's going on, show them how to get on board, etc. And there's about 30 other potential communities that we haven't reached out to yet, but they're good potential fits. So we want to, if there are other communities that could be a good fit, we want to add those to the list, continue moving them through the process, and get them to join Panvala for this next quarter for the donation matching round that's going to happen in June. We want to share it with them and be able, when they bring in donations in Pan, match their donations, and then they stake Pan to increase their matching multiplier. If it was like a donation matching fund, sharing it kind of sucks, right? Like if you have a fixed amount, you're trying to share it with more and more communities, you're just getting a smaller slice of the pie. But Panvala isn't about like a pool of funds, it's about a flow of funds, and each and we split it based on ownership. So each community that's joining is also owning a piece of Panvala to earn that matching. So it's not a burden to share it. It actually is great to share it. We think it grows stronger the more we share it. So the next Panvala League application deadline is May 7th. That's this Friday. Once those applications close, they'll be shared with all the existing 47 Panvala League communities. That's who decides who to accept and who to reject. We haven't really rejected anybody yet. That's not what it's about. It's just that we know we're going to need the ability to say no at some point. So we want to show people as they join where that ability lies, and that's with the existing communities. So by Wednesday of next week, the idea is that we'll announce the next set of Panvala League communities. The current applicants right now are NFDAO, which is a NFT DAO on the Polygon network, where a lot of exciting stuff is happening, and My Crypto, which if you've been around in crypto, like everybody knows My Crypto, they put out a great wallet product, and they've been doing a lot of thought leadership in terms of like keeping new people safe and not getting them hacked, all those sorts of things. So we're excited to potentially have them on board if they get admitted, which they likely will, and to grow even further this next quarter. Lastly, like if you refer communities, there's a referral bonus program available for that thing. If you're looking for ways to earn PAN, one of the easiest ways to earn PAN is if you know of a community that would be a good fit, to basically refer them. And when they join and participate successfully for 2 quarters, you get a bonus for doing that. So if you're interested in that, definitely stay in the Telegram group. And that's really a major part of how Panvala grows. Any questions on the road to 90 communities?
So we need those other, what is it, like 5 more communities in the next, you said like 6 days to hit our goal for this quarter?
No, so we're actually like not close to our goal for this quarter because not all of these people are gonna actually join, right? So the blue, those people are very likely to join. The yellow, those are medium likely to join. And the red are even less likely to join because we haven't even started talking to them. So we're not really on track to the 90. We need to ramp things up to get to the 90. But that's kind of naturally what tends to happen over each quarter. Like when the donation match round gets closer and closer, that's when the sense of urgency to actually like make a decision kicks in, because like, hey, this next batch of matching is going to be released. We want to share it with you. It's going to happen now. I want to join, and then more people come in. So we're not on track. We want to ramp things up to get there because we like to double each quarter, and we definitely want to get back to that. Any other questions on the road to 90? All right. Next up is the donation matching distributions for this past quarter. So the donation matching round for last quarter happened in March, I believe. It was a really successful quarter, the most successful donation matching round in Panvala's history. More donations than ever before came in. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it was really good. The matching for this quarter, the Panvala runs on a 13-week cycle. So the end of the latest 13-week cycle was April 30th. That's when the smart contracts that govern Panvala's token supply actually allowed those tokens to be released. There's no like a multi-sig with all the tokens in it. That's not how it works. Like the token supply contract literally regulates the release of tokens. They can't come out any faster than with a half-life of 4 years. So we always know what's coming out. We knew that it was going to be 1.6 million PAN coming out on April 30th. We know that in July, it's going to be not 1.68, but about 1.61 million tokens coming out because it's governed by that contract. So those tokens were released on April 30th. They went to the multi-sig wallets that control different parts of Panvala's budget. The biggest allocation is for the Panvala League matching program in general, which is 75% of the inflation each quarter. Again, that's something that we decide together, how much we want to distribute to matching and how much we want to use for like common things that make Panvala work. But right now the split is 75, and then there's more and more slices. So for the actual matching, that's now ready to distribute. The budget committee has a meeting scheduled for tomorrow to distribute that first month of matching. Panvala's matching is allocated basically each day behind the scenes. It doesn't get distributed each day, but it gets allocated each day. So we take daily staking snapshots of how much PAN each community has staked and run it through that spreadsheet that calculates how much you actually earn based on how much you brought in. So for an example, really quick, let me bring up the Blockchain Education Network. And basically, the status for each community is up on panvala.com. You can see the basically the rate that they're earning each day. If at the current rate, they would earn a 3.5x matching for this quarter. But again, that hasn't all been earned yet. They've earned 1 month of that so far because it's been 1 month since April 2nd. So it's each day it gets allocated, and then each month we distribute what's been allocated over the past month. So that's what we're ready to do for the first time in this quarter this month. So that's going to happen tomorrow. The other 2 distributions for this quarter, again, like May 28th is going to be another 28 days of the inflation that we allocate. And then July 2nd is going to be the last 35 days of the inflation that we allocate. And then we do the same thing for the next quarter. So every day staking matters. The staking is used to allocate the inflation. And that's kind of how we calculate it. There are more details in the spreadsheet that we use for the Panvala funding scoreboard. If you need a link to that, I can share it with you. And if you ever need an explanation of that scoreboard, I can sit down with you and walk you through it, because it's gotten more and more complicated over time. But it's really a resource for you. And if you want to know more about it, we're always willing to walk you through it. So that's what's going to happen this week. Any questions about the donation matching distributions? All right, next up on the list is the brand refresh project. So for a lot, some of you have already heard about this, some of you haven't, but basically at the end of February, we kicked off a project to do a brand refresh for Panvala. The original brand was kind of designed for a specific messaging that we no longer really use. So we're trying to refresh the brand to make it convey like what we talked about today, what we do today, elevating community life, matching donations from communities. We want it to, like, when people land on panvala.com, for them to feel the same thing that a lot of people feel when I like give them the pitch directly. Like if you've, when people hear it, they tend to get it. But when you land on panvala.com, it doesn't scream, hey, we're funding communities, elevating community life, helping communities work together. We want the brand to scream that. So that work is almost done. The final batch of work on that is actually going to be presented to us tomorrow. And then we're trying to roll out the new brand by basically early June. So that's where a lot of the participating communities are going to be involved, because it's the best opportunity for us to tell our story once again, to basically show people who we are, to show the new branding material, and to talk about how your community uses Panvala. So we're trying to put together a campaign around that. There's going to be more details about that as it's ready to go, but definitely keep that in mind. Like when June comes around, we want to be able to use the new branding material to basically shout from the rooftops what we do with Panvala and why other communities should share it with us. So I'm going to give you a quick preview of the last round of work that they gave to us. This isn't the final material at all, but this is kind of an example of like what kind of thing we're aiming for. This is like when I went through the what we do here slides at the beginning, this is an example of what one of those slides would look like with the new branding applied to it. I kind of updated the logo and just basically how we talk about Panvala and how it feels to people when they see it is what we're trying to kind of tweak. Again, the final work on this is going to be ready tomorrow, and I'll share more of that in Telegram, and then we'll roll that out over the next month or so. Any questions on the brand refresh project? So then next up is a proposal for this quarter. This is about a new kind of matching bonus. So for this past quarter, for the first time, we introduced a matching bonus for communities that were part of coalitions. And the idea there was to use that matching bonus to fund the multi-sig wallet of each coalition. And again, this week, the funding is going to hit those multi-sig wallets for the first time. What I'm proposing for next quarter is a second matching bonus for communities that are represented on Panvala's committees. So basically what we're trying to do is encourage broad participation in the committees that actually do the day-to-day work on Panvala-wide things. We think it works better when there's a wider array of people involved, and also there's work to do, and having that split up between more people is something that we want to encourage and incentivize. Again, this is a proposal. If you don't like it, we want to hear that. If you like it, we also want to hear that. But the idea is to, the same way we have that 15% matching bonus for communities that are part of coalitions, the idea is that there would be a 15% matching bonus for any community that has a member on one of Panvala's committees, or also the existing people who've already volunteered to lead coalitions. Like that's the kind of activity that we're trying to reward as well. So that already counts. If you're already leading a coalition, your community would get this bonus. But also if your community members join committees, then you would get this bonus as well. So for examples of the kind of work that happens in these committees right now, there's really 4 active committees. One is the membership committee. That's all about that road to 90 communities. That's kind of the kind of work that we do. We try to bring in more communities. We lead them through the process. We explain to them what everything's about. If you're interested in being involved in that work, the membership committee is for you. The marketing and events committee, if you're interested in that kind of brand refresh work that I talked about, that's where that work happens. We also try to organize events and promote events like both the Panvala-wide meetings like this town hall, but also events for the communities that are participating, because community life is all about events. We want to make sure that when communities are participating in Panvala, that their events can do it as much as possible. So the marketing and events committee is for you if you're interested in that kind of stuff. The budget committee, if you're interested in the matching distributions that I described and the rules by which those are calculated, the budget committee handles all those and tries to make sure that the rules are always making Panvala as easy to share as possible. There's no the current way that we divide Panvala's inflation is not like a divinely inspired rule set that we always have to follow. Like we intend to iterate on it over time to make sure that every community feels like it is a fair way to divide Panvala's inflation each quarter. So the budget committee is where that work happens. And then lastly, the training committee is where we help people get up to speed with Panvala and with crypto in general. So there's a lot of people who are new to crypto just because it's one of those boom times, but also since Panvala isn't just about crypto-focused communities, it's about all of community life. There's so many communities that don't know anything about crypto, and to be able to share Panvala with them, we're gonna have to get them up to speed. So if that's the kind of thing that excites you, the training committee is where that work happens. There's also some proposed committees that don't actually exist yet, but there's other categories of work that could be done if you want to be involved with them. I won't go through all the details on that, but basically there's a technology committee, a liquidity committee, and a sponsorships committee, and you can read about that. I'm going to send this out in the memo, but basically we'll create those committees as people volunteer for them, and if nobody volunteers for them, then we just won't create them. But that's kind of what we're doing with the committees. And again, the proposal for this quarter is to give a bonus to the communities that have somebody participating in these communities and taking on some of the work that needs to be done to make Panvala as a whole work. So any questions about joining a committee in general, or about the proposal to give a bonus to communities that have somebody on one of these committees? All right. And then next up is the monthly coalition.
Do they need to apply somewhere for that?
If you want to be part of a coalition, there's actually a link that's going to be in this thing that I send out to join a committee. It's really just a form, and then we'll steer you to the right place. We just wanted it to be easy for people to be able to click a button and say, I want to be part of a committee. So that's in the Zoom chat, and it's also going to be in the memo that gets sent out. But basically, that's the way to do it. It's going to be easier to join committees as we're trying to make the Token Holders Association kind of the place where this kind of activity happens, and you'll be able to see all of them there and just like literally just join a group the way you would join a group on Facebook is kind of the idea. But until people are in there, we wanted to make sure that there's just a form you can say, I'm interested, I want to do this thing. So that form is the place to do that.
All right, thank you.
No problem. So next up is the monthly coalition calls. So in previous months, we had this kind of Panvala-wide community updates call where the communities participating in Panvala could share updates about what they're up to. And for this month, we're not doing that call anymore because now that we've formed these 5 coalitions within Panvala, we think instead of adding like yet another meeting to people's calendars, like a coalition meeting, a community updates meeting, the Panvala Town Hall, and then we'll just replace it. So basically focusing on the coalition-centric community updates meetings so that when your community wants to share what they're up to, it's with similar kinds of communities that probably have more ability to help, more inclination to help, etc. We want to connect similar communities with similar goals in ways that help them cooperate and again, fund a multi-sig wallet that they share together. So there are 3 coalitions that have already started meeting on a regular basis. There's 2 coalitions that haven't yet, and we're trying to help them get started. But that's really the next step for the next form of these community updates is really within those coalitions and their independent calls. As those get ramped up, right now, those are kind of like private meetings where the communities that are part of the coalition are the only attendees. Once they kind of pick up some speed and kind of get into their groove of how they want to meet, the idea is to make those more open meetings. So if somebody's interested in regenerative commons as a concept and they want to hear about what's going on in those kind of communities, they could see that call be advertised somewhere and find it, join it, and kind of get that kind of information by participating in those calls as an observer. So that's the end goal for those coalition calls, really to be kind of a public meeting with the speakers being the coalition members. But right now we're starting them as private meetings where you can share with the other similar communities doing similar kinds of things and make proposals for how to spend the funds that have arrived in your multi-sig wallets. And the last thing is that if your community isn't part of a coalition, but you're interested in being part of one, we want to know that. We want to help you either find an existing coalition to join or create a new one, because then that it's not that these are the 5 coalitions. The idea is that as we grow and more kinds of communities become part of Panvala, that we create coalitions for each kind of community that's out there to create more opportunities for cooperation. So if there's not a coalition that fits you, we want to create one. And if you are looking to join an existing coalition but aren't sure how, we want to help you do that as well. So any questions about the next form for the community updates call as these coalition calls, or just joining a coalition in general? So Yaler's asking, do we have a calendar of all the coalition meetings, where they happen and how to join? So we don't have that yet, but that's kind of the goal for May, to be able to put that together. The goal for April is just to kind of get them started, to get people meeting. And that happened for 3 of them. And as people have their second meeting and set kind of a regular time each month to meet, we want to make sure that that's available for everybody to know. So that's eventually going to be on events.panvala.com, which is the event site for Panvala. We want to make sure that the coalition meetings are there, that there's a way for, as the coalition meetings become open to the public, that there's a way for people to kind of RSVP, that sort of thing. is what we want to happen over time. But there's not currently a calendar of all of them, but the goal is by the time we speak in June, and this time in June for the next town hall, the idea is that there will be that kind of calendar available. Any other questions about coalitions? All right, and lastly is about the Token Holders Association. So in April, we talked about like this new type of organization within Panvala. Some people are familiar with the Panvala caucus, which is the old version of this thing. But if you're not familiar with it, I'm not going to re-explain it because it will just confuse you. But basically in Panvala, there's two kinds of governance. There's the community-focused governance, which is the Panvala League, and that's where things predominantly happen. And then there's the individual focused form of governance, which is in the Token Holders Association. That's where individuals can get involved and also have a small say over what happens in Panvala. Because again, the center of governance in Panvala is the community-oriented governance in the Panvala League. But the individual token holders, again, are the token holders at the end of the day. They have all the power in the smart contracts that back this thing up. So we want to have a social process for individuals to be able to express opinions as well. And that's primarily by through a veto if necessary. If they feel like the Panvala League is veering off track, the narrow role for the token holders for the Token Holders Association and Panvala's governance is to veto what the Panvala League is trying to do. We don't expect that will happen anytime soon, but that's the organization that we're trying to build up. The primary role of it isn't governance because they're not going to be doing that often. The primary role is social, to bring together individual token holders to improve Panvala, to do work on Panvala, but also to like just bring people together, have fun. And if there are new ideas for kinds of communities that can be created as we work to elevate community life, to kind of be the place for that kind of discussion to happen and for people to try out new ideas. So that's really what the Token Holders Association is all about. We're in the process of basically testing it out. If you want to be a part of that experiment before we say, okay, time to join everybody, you can head to tha.panvala.com and actually join the Token Holders Association, and then you'll be kind of in the social platform where that thing happens. So if you're interested in being an early adopter of this thing, we definitely want you to join that. If you're not interested in being an early adopter and you're not looking for a new communication tool to test out, then you don't have to do this yet. We're trying to test it out with people who are eager to try it out and then expand it to everybody over time. Any questions about the Token Holders Association? All right. So that's it for the agenda of stuff that I talk at you. If there are any like proposals that you want to discuss, any questions that you have, anything about Panvala that you want to talk about, this is kind of the open floor time to make that happen. And we'd love to hear what's on your mind.
Yeah, briefly. I'm interested in if any of the other coalition leaders have like found success or found good ways of engaging with the multiple communities that are part of the coalition. I know that there's lots of busy people and lots of things happening inside each individual group and organization. And I wanted to kind of do something, or maybe I feel like I should do something that is fun and interesting and brings people together in a Panvala-y way without being too, without requiring too much time or too much planning or organization, because, you know, we are all people. So just wanted to hear from the group, see if any other coalition leaders have had success or whatnot.
So the other coalition leader who's here right now is Peter. So if you have anything on that, that'd be great. If not, I have some thoughts.
Yeah, hey everyone. I don't have any thoughts, just want to confirm it's hard to like to engage people and to find time appropriate for everyone. So yeah, I'm interested in that too, how to make that simpler.
Cool. So from my end, I think the easiest form for this sort of thing to take over time is really mostly as a opportunity to share information between communities and with the public. Like it should, I think the easiest way for the coalitions to add value is to be kind of a clearinghouse for information for a type of community. Because it's hard to get people on the same page. It's hard to find time to communicate. Like having that place where people can share information, I think is the easiest way to add value. And then making that a public place for people to be able to hear from those things and have kind of an audience for the coalitions, I think adds value as well. So there's a tendency there's a tendency to find some sort of grand thing to do. And I don't think that's necessary because I think the simplest thing to do is just talk about what you're doing with each other and how you can help each other and just do that on a regular basis. So none of the coalitions that I've observed have gotten to that point yet where they're talking about what they're doing and mainly sharing updates. It's more like the coalition calls that I've been on, people are trying to figure out what to do together, which I think is still good. And if they find things to do together, I think that's great. But I do think that it's hard to actually get people to say, okay, this is the thing that we want to do together. And the easiest thing is to say, hey, let's share, let's do show and tell. Let's talk about what we're up to and how we can help each other. And I hope that gets tested out in May. And then when we talk again in June, we can see if that worked or if it didn't.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's good information. And that helps me to feel that I'm doing the required thing and not doing what is required. Not required, but what makes sense, right? Especially for our group, I just want to keep us all in sync. And if monthly calls are a good way to keep us in sync, and that's great.
Yeah, and definitely approach it as an experiment because there's an idea in my head about how this shapes up, but it's a hypothesis. So each coalition is kind of an independent experiment, and the things that work we want to repeat, and the things that don't work we don't want to make people struggle through. So definitely trying to share across coalitions to figure out the best way to make this happen.
Would it be possible to use the Panvala Discord to host these larger meetings rather than it be on one of the coalition's Discords, for example?
Yeah, I think that's great. So the calls that I've been to, one coalition was using Zoom, one coalition was using Jitsi, and no, I guess two use Zoom and one use Jitsi. So the Discord is always open as a place to have those coalition calls if people choose to do that. I just haven't been steering people there. But I think it's a fine place for that sort of thing to happen and a little bit easier to find, I guess.
Yeah, I found for just us internally, it helps because people aren't then trying to keep track of links to these meetings.
Yeah, that can be messy. Any other questions, comments, things you want to talk about with Panvala people? All right, if nothing, then I think that's it, and we'll give you back 15 minutes of your time. Thanks again for coming and being a part of this. Really what makes Panvala work is people. It's not code that makes Panvala work. It's not tokens that make Panvala work. It's people, it's you and your communities working together that makes it work. All we want to do all the time is to make sure that as much cooperation happens as possible. We're cooperation maximalists, and we just want to make it easy. If it's working for you, we want to hear it and what's working well. If it's not working for you, we want to hear that too, because this is all an experiment and we want to iterate on it every step of the way. And we think that if we keep doing that, then there is a giant opportunity on the horizon to elevate community life. It doesn't have to be a sideshow of our society. It can be the main event. And the reason it's not is because the resources don't go to community life. We together can make so much more of the resources in our society go to community life. When companies are trying to figure out the best way to spend their marketing dollars, right now they're like, just buy some ads. That's the best way. And when our work here is done, the best way to spend your marketing dollars is going to be to put those marketing dollars in the budget of the communities that use your company. And I think that's going to drive so many more resources to communities that we're going to be able to do so much more together with the people we choose. We won't have to engage in winner takes all politics for everything. We won't have to worry about profit maximization for everything. Political life and corporate life are still going to exist. They're still going to be a thing, but we can significantly grow the scope of community life and make so many people happier. That's what we're here to do. That's why we're trying to grow from 47 communities to thousands. And I am super excited to do this with you all. So thanks for being a part of it. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you very much, Niran.
Thank you.